After 40 years of wandering in the desert after the exodus from Egypt, the Jewish people were now camped on the eastern side of the Jordan River, ready to enter the land of Israel. Moses, their great leader and prophet, dies, and he's buried on Mount Nebo. And leadership of the Jewish people passes on to Joshua, Moses' main student. The Jewish people will cross the Jordan River and begin the conquest of the land of Israel. During this period of time, the land is occupied by 7 different nations that are generically called the Canaanites. They're living in 31 city-states, and the Jewish people's job is to systematically conquer the land. The first city-state conquered is Jericho, on the western side of the Jordan River. After the city of Jericho comes Ai. And the book of Joshua, which describes this whole period of time in Jewish history, describes the 7 years of conquest of the land of Israel, where various Canaanite kingdoms unite to try and stop the Jewish people, but they're unsuccessful. After 7 years of conquest, the land is more or less controlled by the Jews, but pockets of Canaanites will remain in the land of Israel, including in the city of Jerusalem. This will later prove to be a big stumbling block for the Jewish people, as the influence of Canaanite pagan civilization will seep into Jewish culture and corrupt the Jewish people. But once the land is conquered and subdued, then the land must be divided. Jacob had 12 sons, and those 12 sons will become 12 tribes. And more or less, those 12 tribes will be the people who will inherit the land of Israel. A lottery is done to decide who will live in which part of the land. Once the lottery is completed, the Jewish people will settle in their tribal inheritance. The largest tribe in the land of Israel will be Judah, and they will inherit the entire southern part of the country. Jerusalem, which will later be the political and spiritual capital of the Jewish people, will actually sit in between the second smallest tribe of Benjamin and the tribe of Judah. After 14 years, the land is conquered, the land is settled. This is more than 450 years after Abraham, the patriarch of the Jewish people, was promised by God that his children would inherit the land. That promise is finally fulfilled. Joshua will rule the Jewish people for 28 years. When he dies, he gives the Jewish people a very important message, which will be the overarching theme of not only early Jewish history, but all of Jewish history. Since the time of your forefathers, he says, you're involved in a contractual agreement with God. You keep your side of the bargain. You have a good relationship with each other and a good relationship with me, God says, then I promise you will live securely in the land. The rain will fall, the crops will grow, the animal herds will be healthy, and you will live at peace with your land. Your enemies will not bother you. But if you don't keep your bargain, then the rain will stop falling, drought will hit the land, and your enemies will drive you out of your homeland. Unfortunately, we'll see that this will be a pattern that will repeat itself over and over again. After 28 years, Joshua dies. And the Jewish people will live in a loose confederation of tribal states with a central court system, but with no strong central leadership. The problem is, just as Joshua had warned the Jewish people, the influence of those Canaanites who remained in the land will begin to seep into the collective consciousness and the behavior of the Jewish people. They will be drawn away from God and towards idolatry. And now we begin a roller coaster pattern that will repeat itself for hundreds and hundreds of years. And this is what's described in the book of Judges, the next book of the Hebrew Bible, where the Jewish people will slide away from Judaism and start to worship the Canaanite gods. And then foreign enemies will come and attack them. And because of that difficult situation, they will cry out to God for salvation. And God will send a judge, a political and spiritual leader who will often be a prophet, whose job it will be to not only save the Jewish people physically, but to get the Jewish people spiritually to return to a healthy relationship with each other and with God. These judges are very different people. Some of them are barely mentioned in the book of Judges. Some of them are mentioned in great detail. If the best man for the job is a woman, Deborah will be the judge of the Jewish people. Occasionally, you'll even get a Jewish superhero like Samson, who will have superhuman strength and deliver the Jewish people from the Philistines. So the judge will come along, the Jewish people will return to their proper relationship with God, they will achieve military salvation from their oppressors, things will get peaceful and quiet, and then, of course, they will slide back in. It seems to be, it's much easier to remember God, no atheists in the foxholes, when things are bad. With the death of the great prophet Samuel, the last of these 16 judges mentioned in the book of Judges, we now end a 400-year period of loose tribal confederation and Jewish settlement in the land of Israel. This roller coaster ride of ups and downs, of peace and tranquility, and persecution and salvation. And we're now ready to enter the next period of time of Jewish history. For the first time, the Jewish people in the land of Israel will have a king. I'm Ken Spiro, and you're watching JTV.
To stay up to date with JTV content, click subscribe here if you're on YouTube and hit the alarm bell. And if you're on Facebook, hit the like button and under following, click see first. If you enjoy watching JTV content and want to help us continue to grow, please consider making a donation to us by clicking here.